Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite Radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie, Benamou, and every week for the last 200 episodes, I have been coming to you to provide you valuable insights that you can use for every aspect of your life in the second half of your career, whether you're looking to land a board role, if you're wanting to expand your career opportunities and find what's next after corporate or grow your business. We have had incredible interviews with women that have inspired you to take action. And today we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 episodes that have been on this show and also a look forward. So let's get started with this special episode today on Women Leaders on the Move by Her C-Suite Radio now. Have you ever hit a milestone and realized it was even bigger than you originally thought? As I approached this 200th episode, I realized it is actually my 300th episode. My first podcast was Rock Your Trade Show, and it started 7 years ago. I had 100 episodes exactly before its conclusion because of the pandemic. The following year, I launched Women Leaders on the Move, this Her C-Suite Radio podcast. And 7 years later, 2 podcasts, 300 shows and counting, it really feels surreal. When I started Women Leaders on the Move, my vision was to create a show that you could walk with me on Wednesdays. It was short, only 15 minutes or less, and we were focused on delivering content because there was a lockdown and people just needed to take a break and go outside, and I wanted to be with you during that time. As I started interviewing more and more women, I realized 15 minutes was a little too short. So now we're focused on giving you advice in less than 30 minutes. That's our sweet spot. Today, our show is all about honoring you, our listeners, and the incredible journey we have had together. And it's really about stepping into your light, being unapologetically you, and redefining what it means to be relevant as a woman and as a leader in your career. 200 episodes ago, this podcast began as a way to help women feel valued, know that you matter, and to advance you forward to board roles, to grow businesses, and discover what was coming next for your career after you left your corporate role. The through line with all the podcasts is giving you content that will inspire you, and I hope that you took some action along the way. This show started at a high when we needed to find ways to retain your top talent if you were leading a company or companies were trying to retain you. Flash forward to today, it's a totally different picture, isn't it? Women feel like they've taken a step back in not only not looking at retaining top female talent, but our value feels like it's being put in question. In fact, our vision of helping women feel valued seems more urgent today and relevant than ever. Today's show is dedicated to celebrating you, the lessons we've learned together, the powerful stories that women have shared on this show to pave the way for you and others coming after us. Let's reflect on these moments and what they've taught us about stepping fully into who we are as a leader. Over the past 200 episodes, there have been top 10 most listened to on the show. And I looked at the analytics. And as I quote one of my friends, Debbie Davis, who on my first podcast said, "What do the numbers show us?" I am always remembering that when she talked about what does the data say. And so I took a look at all of the episodes. And out of 200, here are our top 10. The first one was with Roz Usheroff. And believe it or not, it is the first of a two-part series on this podcast. It is episode 2 of the very first episodes that we ever did about how to make a career pivot. And we talked a lot about the pandemic, about what it felt like when the world stopped and we had to really reinvent what we were doing. And it was still during that time because this episode launched 4 years ago, and there was this intermittent lockdown and not lockdown, and still a lot of stress on ourselves and everyone around us. And one of the quotes that Raj shared was, "Don't be afraid to let go of what no longer serves you." She reminded us that courage and clarity are essential to embracing change and pursuing a new direction. And that's exactly what we've done. On a few occasions, we have been known to take a pivot and make change happen. The number 2 podcast listened to by you is by Dr. Alessandra Wall, Elevate Your Visibility. We talked and I learned about ways that you can shine your light without feeling like you're bragging. And I will tell you that I'm from the Midwest and I grew up in an era where women were really stressed to be demure, to not overshare what our accomplishments were. And she really helped me rethink that. And I applied it right away in a conversation right afterwards. And she shared that you can't inspire others if you're hiding your own light. Her episode challenged us to stop shrinking and start leading with confidence. The third on this list is my own podcast, BAM Pivot to Purpose. It was about writing a chapter in an anthology, Brave Women at Work Lessons in Leadership, and my journey of having a head injury and reinventing myself and coming out on the other side and becoming who I am today. Reflecting on that journey, I shared that being authentically you isn't just about professional success, it's about aligning your work with purpose and creating something meaningful. Purpose driven leadership creates a ripple effect of impact. Number 4 on the list is with Kendall Wallace, How Human Connections Transform Teams. What I loved about this conversation with Kendall is that during the pandemic, she lived in New York City and she decided to totally transform her life. And she moved to Hawaii and started a business helping teams really dive in deep and thrive. And she talked about teams transform when leaders show up as themselves. She emphasized that authenticity fosters trust, collaboration, and growth. And it really resonated with me. And I know with a lot of leaders, as you think about how you can transform your teams, what are ways that you can connect more powerfully? She had so many great pearls of wisdom. Jennifer McCollum shared in Navigating to the Rise of a CEO about, about how she was about to take on the CEO role of Catalyst, a well-known organization that really focuses on empowering women. She's also a best-selling author, and she shared how when you know your value, you walk into every room differently. Jennifer's insights encourage women to recognize their worth and step boldly into leadership. I really love this next conversation with Amy Scott about how servant leaders bridge the generation gap. And when we think about our generations now, there is a bigger gap now more than ever that is spanning because the older we get, we really are working longer, and there's a generation gap with people that are just coming into the workforce from college or only into the workforce for a few years. And Amy Scott shared that when you're curious, you're going to listen differently and ask a very different type of question. She inspired us to lead with curiosity and empathy when having those important conversations. And I would be remiss if I wasn't celebrating this next guest, Meredith Elliott Powell, who talked about lean into your customers. I am a super fan of Meredith Elliott Powell, as I am of all our guests, but in particular, Meredith, because I have now joined her mastermind and I attend without exception every Saturday Sales Logic podcast with her and Mark Hunter. But before I even did that, I met Meredith through speaking because she's a global speaker. And I watched her reels and was so impressed and thrilled that she agreed to be on my show. And we talked about her books, which are incredible. And one of them is How to Thrive in Uncertainty. And I highly recommend it. So I hope that you will check it out. I will have it in the show notes. And Meredith talks about the human brain needs to be comfortable, which results in increased engagement and higher retention. And we were talking about the uncertainty. And at the time that I was talking with Meredith, it was still in the era of retaining top talent, which now we have shifted a little bit away from that moment. But Meredith emphasized something that's so powerful about understanding and adapting to your customers' needs. And that is a timeless piece of advice also in her book, Thrive. And I will hope that you will check that out in the show notes. I was really lucky to have the chance to get to know Dr. Renika Briscoe. She talks about mindset, mentorship, and making an impact. And I am so excited to talk about how she shares not only about what it was like to interview all these successful women, but also she talked about how she really excelled and learned what she wanted to do with her career. And now she's an entrepreneur as a result. Anjana Schroeder has a book out, and she's number 9 on this list about empowering women's health outcomes. And her book is called Healthcare of a Thousand Slights. And I read it in one sitting. Yes, one sitting. And when you see how long it is, you will understand why that was so incredible. I think I was one of the few that ever reached out to her and told her that I read it all at once. And she said, you can't lead others if you're running on empty. She reminds us that prioritizing self care is essential for sustainable leadership. And it's also essential for leading health organizations, for helping others, and for taking care of yourself. The last guest in the top 10 is Raquel Daniels. And one of my favorite topics is kindness. And the topic of our conversation is kindness is a key component to inclusion. When we provide a platform to share those stories, we create shared humanity. And she shared how in her career, she really takes time and learned the importance of showing empathy everywhere she goes, whether it's opening the door for someone, standing in line, getting a coffee, greeting people in the company. She always leads with kindness and how storytelling and kindness foster inclusion. I remember each of these conversations, and I'm so glad that you found them to be important and you continue to listen to them because they are on the top 10, and some of them go back several years. So thank you for listening. As we look into going forward, I am accepting and embracing an idea that is really outside of my comfort zone, which is being unapologetically you. I want to encourage you to think about this. Recently, I had the privilege of being featured in a segment on WGN TV called Style Files: How to Wear 2025 Fashion Trends Over 50. And I did it with the fabulous Diane Harper Boyer. And it was a moment that reminded me that what happens when we embrace who we're supposed to be, and we step into our own signature style and our own unique place. And I have to tell you, it was so fun going down to the WGN studio and walking in and having this experience and seeing the newscasters and standing on set. It was a wow, wow, wow for me. And I really had fun because Diane helps me wear something I normally wouldn't. And she also was so kind because pink, as you can see and hear and know, if you watch me or see me on social, pink is my signature color. I always have pink on. And she gave me a pink briefcase that allowed me to walk onto the set with a pop of pink and my signature. And one of the things that I learned from that day and thinking about how we can step into the light is first surround ourselves with the right people. And that's the foundation of her C-suite. From Jim Rohn, we are the result of the 5 people we surround ourselves with. It's everything we do in our programs is to surround ourselves with the right people. And the opportunity to be on WGN happened because of an alliance partner, Bobby Carlton, who is the founder of Innovation Women, and she also is the founder and CEO of Carlton PR. And she tagged me in a post in a group that we are part of, Entreprenista League, with Sabina Hitchin. And I was honored to be selected and featured on WGN. And community is really about lifting each other up and opening doors, and who we have around us in our life, who pushes us to shine bright. Lean into those people, celebrate them, and keep them close. One of the things that I learned was to be fearless and share authentically. And this is hard for me. I self doubt a lot. You may think if you see me on LinkedIn or you see I'm always posting, oh, I must be so confident and I'm always sharing these ideas. But behind the scenes, I have to tell you, I doubt a lot. So this year, I've truly stepped into the Her C-Suite brand, making pink my signature color everywhere. And I also revamped our website, and Her C-Suite is completely different. I am the face of Her C-Suite, which for 4 years I have not been. I've been behind the scenes. So this was a big step forward in being authentic to myself, and also because I care so deeply for our members and I want people to know how important the personal experience is to me for women that come into Her C-Suite. And so I made that big leap. And then the last thing, and this big lesson that I've learned because Mel Robbins dropped a big book called Let Them this year, and it's Let Them Let You, or Let Them Let Me, actually. And so I want you to think about this as you are thinking about stepping in and being authentic, if this resonates with you into the new year. And if you haven't read her new book, Let Them, it is a must read. And millions of people are reading it and talking about it. But the one thing that it really tells you is once you let them and you stop worrying about what other people are thinking, then you can tap into yourself and let yourself find what matters and what you value. One of the best gifts of all was meeting so many amazing women on this podcast. And I've had the incredible experience of interviewing best-selling authors, TEDx speakers, leaders, coaches, consultants, and I have really, really enjoyed each of our conversations. I am so thrilled to have so many of them in Women Leaders on the Move, our newest membership in Her C-Suite, because it's a way to give thought leadership and access to our listeners, to our members, and to the amazing women that have been on this show. My wish for you is that you embrace one word, and for me, my word this year is limitless. And I hope that you find a word for yourself that truly resonates and helps you think about what's possible. For me, it reflects my commitment to breaking barriers, to stepping boldly into new opportunities, and helping other women do the same. My wish for you is that you find the courage to embrace all that you're meant to be. Step into your light, surround yourself with the right people, and let yourself be unapologetically you. Here's to the next 200 episodes, the extraordinary women who make it all possible. Keep shining your light bright. I know that the world really needs you. Thank you for spending your time with me today on this milestone day. I am so glad that we had the chance to be together today to celebrate 200 episodes, or if you're counting, 300 episodes. It's been a delight and an honor to talk with you, to be here for you, to hopefully inspire you to take action. That means the world to me. Send me a message. Let me know if something I said resonated. And I would be really honored if you'd rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Join us in Women on the Move, our newest membership. You get access to amazing speakers that have been on this show and other women in our community. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.